So, first, let's kick it off. What's new at the box office this weekend?
There are two major wide releases. Universal's Ticket to Paradise, an old school, formulaic, in a good way, rom-com throwback starring George Clooney and Julia Roberts. And I saw the film this week. It's very good. And dear God, they're both dead sexy, even though they're in their late 50s, early 60s. I don't actually know how old they are, but yes. Roberts is still gorgeous. Clooney's still getting in the Silver Fox era, and the film is very what you would expect of it. It's about two divorced parents that seemingly hate each other, but briefly reunite and kind of team up to sabotage their daughter's island wedding.
That sounds
Um,
fun.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's an old school studio picture. It's the kind of thing your parents like to see. My parents are going on Tuesday. Um, but regardless, I mean, yes, it gets by on movie star chemistry, but that's the point of having movie stars. It looks gorgeous. It's the supporting cast is just funny enough to stand out. Catherine Dever is terrific as usual. She's been sort of bubbling under the radar with a number of high profile pictures and TV shows.
She got her big
Um,
break from Booksmart, right?
Yes,
Yes.
Booksmart, Dope Sick, Dear Evan Hansen. Oh, just last weekend, she was in a wonderful Hulu original. Should have been in theaters. Hulu original called, I believe, Rosalina. It's basically Romeo and Juliet from the point of view of Romeo's ex.
Ooh,
Um,
okay. That's a fun twist.
yeah, and it's fun. It was one of two Romeo and Juliet movies we got last weekend alongside Halloween Ends. Um,
So, do you think we haven't seen rom-coms released in theater all too much recently? Why now in October and why at all are we seeing Ticket in Paradise or Ticket to
Well,
Paradise?
why October is a good question. Just because, and I was whining about this for months, just because you know, as you know, there were a relative dearth of big releases between, I'd say, Bullet Train and The Woman King at best, if not Don't Worry, Darling, or uh the various horror films like Smile and what have you. So yeah, I was sort of like begging Universal, please put this out, move this to August, move this to August. um Same thing with Bros. I mean, Bros was going to do what Bros was going to do, but I think that was a film that was positioned in late September, partially for a festival debut, that did it no good. And that's not to say the film wasn't well received, but it's not going to be in the Oscar race. It didn't. It got overshadowed by the other festival debuts, and that was a film along with Ticket to Paradise that I think might have done better had it opened in August or even early September. Now, ironically, Ticket to Paradise has been playing overseas for the last month in a very slow international rollout. The $60 million comedy has already made about 73 million overseas. And for perspective, that's almost what Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum's A Lost City made overseas, 85 in total. So unless it bombs this weekend, and I don't think it's going to, the romantic comedy is not dead yet. The live action theatrical comedy that doesn't have any action or fantasy in it is not dead yet.
Well, that
Universal, to its credit, has been trying. They had Marry Me in February with Jennifer Lopez. They had Bros. They had Easter Sunday. And now they have Ticket to Paradise. So there's basically four non-action, non-fantasy comedies, live action theatrical comedies, and they're basically the only examples of that in the last year.
and do you think
Um,
Ticket to Paradise will perform best out of all the ones you just listed?
oh God, I hope so. We're doomed if it. I mean, yes. I mean, not to be annoying. Again, it's already. Even if it made no money in North America, its $73 million overseas total is already a bigger global gross than probably those first three titles combined, off the top of my head. Forgive me if I'm incorrect on that. I haven't checked Easter Sunday in a while. Um, but yeah, I'm hoping it's going to do over under 15 million for the weekend. And I'm expecting legs because it delivers on its promises in terms of general audiences wanting to see, a Hollywood studio programmer with glamorous movie stars being funny. And it's the only game in town for that kind of film. And for audiences that don't care about Marvel or DC, don't care about quote unquote Oscar movies, and don't care about horror. Um, we are going to be getting some movies, especially around Thanksgiving weekend. But for a while, it's basically going to be Black Adam, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Disney's Strange World, and then eventually in December, you're going to get Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and Avatar: The Way of Water. So in terms of just a movie, Ticket to Paradise, especially one aimed at and partially starring women, it's going to be one of the only games in town.
And are Julia Roberts and George Clooney what you describe as butts and seats actors? Are they getting people to the theater?
Obviously less so than 20 years ago, which, to be fair, if Hollywood was better at making new movie stars, we wouldn't be still, depending on the Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts and Tom Cruises of the world. That was the subtext to Top Gun Maverick, I would argue, is that Hollywood was so bad at making the next Tom Cruise that they're still depending on Tom Cruise to save their ass. And if, my opinion has long been is that, Hollywood shot themselves in the foot by spending, all their time trying to make the next Tom Cruise while totally ignoring, the next Will Smith. But I digress. In this kind of film, yes, I do believe they are butts and seat stars. They have starred together once before. Well, they were in the Ocean's trilogy together as well, the first two of those films at least. But that was a slightly different dynamic. That was a giant ensemble cast where she was the primary love interest of George Clooney's character. They did a drama called Money Monster in May of 2016, directed by Jodie Foster, interestingly enough. It was a flop because the reviews weren't great, and this was when you were starting to see the notion where everyone was going to see, Marvel movies like Captain America: Civil War, and actual movies for grown-ups like the Nice Guys and Money Monster had no shot now. And that's something that, especially the Captain America movies, more so even than the other Marvel films. I mean, those films are basically Tom Clancy movies in tights. So you get the kids and you get the dads.
That's like a killing two birds with one stone situation.
Yes. But no, I'm expecting it to do relatively well. I'm hoping it'll open to around 15, maybe leg out to 60, maybe 70 if I'm optimistic. And it won't be a super mega smash, but, if it doubles or triples its budget worldwide, and it's obviously going to do well on PVOD because there is an audience that might have shown up to see it in theaters 10 years ago, but now might be willing to pay $20 to watch it at night, with the kids go to bed or whatever. So yeah, so far so good. And I think what we've seen over the last couple years is that there is still an audience for movies, whether it's Channing Tatum's Dog or Everything Everywhere All at Once, which bonkers bananas grosses. I mean, even in pre-COVID times, whatever, there's no precedent for a film like Everything Everywhere All at Once doing 70 domestic and 100 worldwide. Or something like The Woman King, which is doing well. It's not, it was an expensive film. It's not doing great overseas so far, but that's, not to jump around a lot, although that's what I do here. The big deal that Sony signed with Netflix for their first paid TV window for Sony theatricals, they got a lot of money from that because Netflix needed a third party, more third party content. And Sony gets to be the arms dealer in the streaming war. Why fight and die in the war when you can get rich selling the guns? And honestly, I think that's partially David Zaslav's strategy as well in terms of Warner Brothers Discovery. Why put Batman the Caped Crusader, the cartoon, on HBO Max for nothing when you can sell it to Apple or Netflix or whatever for incredibly oversized amount because, hey, it's a new Batman cartoon and you get rich. But I digress. I'm getting way off topic here. Let me get back to shore for a second. Yes, I do think there is an audience for movies like this. It's not nearly the audience that was there even 6 or 7 years ago, before the general audience and the see a movie just to see a movie crowd gravitated to streaming. And that's been a problem for the industry at large. And that the other issue is that more and more adults are seeing the same stuff that their kids are seeing. The example I always use is in the March-April of 1990. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a huge hit because kids saw it. I'm talking deeply stereotypical thinking here, so bear with me. Pretty Woman was a huge hit because women saw it, adult women. It was an R-rated movie. And then Hunt for Red October was a huge hit because adult men saw it. And that was, April, May, March of 1990. Cut to, 2020. Now everybody sees Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and there's almost no marketplace for the Hunt for Red October or Pretty Woman.
So what changed between then and now?
I think in the last several years, you lost the general audiences that used to go to the movies just to see a movie, and the audiences that would see the event films and other stuff. So an audience that would show up for Batman and A League of Their Own, or Batman Returns and A League of Their Own, Batman and Robin and My Best Friend's Wedding, which opened on the same day in January 20th, 1997. So if you want to do a slight comparison with Black Adam and Ticket to Paradise, we're partying like it's June of 1997. But that audience now, whether it's nostalgia or only prioritizing theatrical releases for the big screen IMAX spectacle that you could take your kids to, it's a multitude of reasons. But the audio, the demographic shift that turned something like My Best Friend's Wedding from a surefire hit to a genuine roll of the dice has basically made films like Don't Worry Darling into, God, I hope it does well, where 10 years ago would have been an easy layup. It might not have been a blockbuster, but nobody would have been sweating over it. And that's part of the issue is when we saw in March of 2022, where there was basically nothing opening other than the Batman at the beginning of the month and The Lost City at the end of the month, is that the kind of movies that used to open against or alongside a Batman movie, like My Best Friend's Wedding, like Mamma Mia, like League of Their Own, Notting Hill, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, that'd be a Disney Plus thing now. Those kind of films barely get made at the theatrical level. And we can debate whether it's, I blame the audience more than a lot of my peers, and that's fair. You can also argue that it was the studio making the willful choice to prioritize 4-quadrant blockbusters at the expense of everything else. But on a week-to-week basis up until COVID, you were still getting those movies, but nobody was showing up.
So I do want to talk about another movie that is coming out this week. And do you think people are going to show up to see Black Adam?
Yes. The reviews are mediocre. It's got like a 45% and a 5.2 out of 10. That's the average critic score, which is the one you really should be paying attention to when you use Rotten Tomatoes.
And was that
because
expected?
Even if I'm sorry, go away.
Was that expected? The mediocre reviews?
Not by me, because I liked it.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. I mean, it's not high art, but if you want comic book movies that are a comic book movie that's high art, Wakanda Forever is opening in 3 weeks, and I'm guessing that's going to be a slightly more upscale picture. But this one is, it's very bright and colorful. It looks great in IMAX. The $190 million budget's on the screen. I think the 3-month or so delay, because it was supposed to open July 29th, was put to good use in terms of post-production work hopefully without, pardon the expression, pixel fucking the post-production, special effects people. That's a term when they're just basically worked to death and, worked to the bone because they're just trying to hit an arbitrary release date. Marvel is not the only one that does that, but they've been in the news a lot lately because they have so many projects that are on very rigid, release dates. But that's an entirely different conversation that other people are more expertise to talk about. Black Adam. It is fun. It is good. I think my kids will enjoy it when I take them tomorrow. It's 2 hours of Dwayne Johnson, killing bad guys, which on one hand is shame, but it's fun to watch him kill bad guys in creative and almost borderline Looney Tunes kind of ways. And even the bad reviews will sort of assure general audiences that they're getting what they came to see. And that's important to me. It's the same reason why movies like Transformers and Jurassic World, do well despite bad reviews, because even the bad reviews say, look, you're getting what if you like this franchise, if you want to see a Jurassic World movie for IMAX friendly visuals and dinosaurs eating people, you're going to get what you pay for. So that's when people talk about movies being critic proof. That's what I tend to think of it as. Um,
So do you think
it,
that these bad reviews will deter people from seeing this movie, or no? Because they're like, I want to go see some bad guys
I think it'll
die. I'm
hurt a
going.
little bit.
Okay.
So, I mean, the film did 7.6 million in Thursday preview grosses, which is, for example, Shazam did 5.9 in preview grosses and ended up with a $53.5 million opening weekend. But, and this may be a big but, it made 3.3 in sneak previews 2 weeks earlier, which meant by the end of Thursday night, it had done $9.225 million and did about 57 over opening weekend. I tend to count those toward the whole kit and caboodle because I tend to think that anyone that shows up for a paid sneak preview 2 weeks early was probably going to show up on Thursday night if that was their first opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise, in terms of counting the Thursday numbers toward the Friday gross, which is how it's been done since the beginning of time, if you're somebody that's going to race out to see Black Adam at Thursday night at 7, you were probably otherwise going to show up on Friday night if that was the first option available to you. So yeah, I think we're looking at an opening weekend at worst 55, at best 70. Let's say 62 just to be lazy. It's an expensive movie, so it does need to leg out a little bit, and it needs strong overseas numbers. There's no guarantee it will play in China, and even if it does, there's no guarantee it will play by pre-COVID standards. Rampage did 155, Hobbs and Shaw did 200, but the Batman did 25, 20. Wonder Woman 84 did like 25. Shazam in 2019, which did not connect to Chinese audiences, which is a shame. They usually have better taste. That only made $43 million. Just to clarify, I love Shazam, and I was very sad that they didn't artificially boost that film's global gross.
So
but still, 366 on a 90 budget is a big hit. That's why we're getting a sequel next March.